All right, so we're going to make a new little MIDI sequence kind of thing. Now, I do this little um, project or assignment or whatever you want to call it a lot in my real world classes. And the danger of this is that I get like too into it and just start goofing around with this for like hours at a time. Um, so I'm going to try not to do that. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to start from scratch. So let's take a Max MIDI effect, throw it on a track. There it is. Let's open it up. There it is. Now I'm going to make this window nice and big. And this MIDI in and MIDI out stuff, I don't really need because we're going to make notes in a slightly different way than MIDI out. So we can leave that there. Maybe I'll break this just to make sure there's no confusion. These are just comments. We know what those are now, so we can get rid of it. You might be wondering about this vertical line here. What you're seeing here is once you make something and you want to make it look really nice, you can do that. And then anything you put above this line is what's going to show up here in Ableton. Okay, so anything below this line is for things that you don't need someone to see. There are other ways to hide things, but that's one way we do it. Okay, so let's do this. Let's make this a little more fun. Let's take a note. Let's take a MIDI note and turn it into something crazy. Okay? So first, we need an object that's going to listen for MIDI coming in to this track. That is going to be Note In. And specifically, Note In is going to listen for notes, not anything else. This MIDI in will look for everything. This Note In is going to look for just notes. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay, let's look at our outputs. Pitch, velocity, and MIDI channel. So let's put a number box on each of those, just so we can see what's coming in. If you're wondering how I duplicate things like that, I'm Option, click, and drag is what'll kind of leave one in place and then take a new one with it. Okay, so let's play some MIDI notes. And I don't see anything because I haven't saved this yet. Sometimes in order to get these Max for Live effects to work, you need to at least save it once. So let's call this online class MIDI sequence. Check. Okay. So I'm not getting any notes right now because I need this track to be armed so that MIDI notes come into that track. Okay, now MIDI notes are coming into that track and they're going into my Max patch. So let's go back over to Max. All right, now we see the note number and the velocity, how hard I'm playing it, and the channel. Okay, so you'll notice that we're not going to hear anything, and in this case, we're not going to hear anything for two reasons. One is that we haven't put an instrument on our track yet. So let's just put like a piano of some sort on here. Oh, here's a Rhodes. Let's put a Rhodes on it. All right. Next, we're still not going to hear anything because Note In is coming in and then doing nothing with those numbers. So we need a Note Out. Okay. Now, if we want to hear these things, we can just route them straight down. All right, and now we're going to hear the notes we play. Cool. So in this case, all three of these numbers are getting here at the same time, more or less. We saw earlier how I don't really have to do that. These two could just hang out, and I could change the number, the note number, once we get any number in these left two inlets. That's how this particular object works. Okay, next let's make a little delay for our note. Okay, so we need an object that's going to delay something. So let's make a new object. Let's put it over here. And now let's just take a guess. We need something that's going to delay something, so let's try delay. Okay. Now, look at all the things that come up. These are different types of delays. These are different types of delays. Delay by itself is going to delay a bang. We don't need to delay a bang here. We need to delay a number, or possibly a series of numbers. So delay tilde is going to delay a signal. Signal in this case means an audio signal. So that's not what we want either. Delay R, not really sure what that is. Pipe, delay numbers, lists, or symbols. That sounds like what we want. We want delay numbers. Okay? So it's called pipe. Why is it called pipe? Sometimes the makers of Macs do funny things for their object names. There are so many objects that I think they just get bored. Like there's a drunk object. There's a couple other silly ones. But pipe is not necessarily silly. If you think about it, what we're doing with pipe is we're taking a stream of numbers or letters or anything, putting it through a pipe, and then we're basically going to squeeze the pipe down and create a bottleneck to slow it down. So it kind of makes sense. So I'm going to double click on that and make pipe. Okay, how do we use pipe? Let's find out. We're going to go to that help file. So let's see. We've got 3 arguments here. We probably don't need all 3. Delay numbers, symbols. Pipe uses the max time format, syntax. Delay interval can be either fixed or tempo relative. Okay, that means fixed means we're going to give it a number of milliseconds. Tempo relative means we're going to give it a number of beats or 16th notes or whatever we want to do. Okay, so what are these arguments? Okay, so here it says arguments, initialization list optional. Okay, so that means we can give it something to delay, we can give it the value of the delay, and we can give it a time in milliseconds. Now, if we don't use all of these, we can just use some of them, but they have to be in the right order. So what I'm going to use here is just the amount of time. And you can do that in pipe. So let's say 1,000. That means 1,000 milliseconds. So that's going to be 1 second. Okay. Now let's look at my inputs. So in the left inlet is the thing to be delayed. The right inlet, delay time. So we could give it a new time here and it would overwrite the argument. And maybe we'll do that later. And then this is the output. Okay, so I'm going to take this note and run it through pipe. Okay, now I'm going to play a note and you're going to hear it 1 second later. There it is. Okay, now in this case, what's happening is that we're getting a velocity 0 before the delay happens. So I need this velocity to be off at this point. So what I could do for velocity is just say the velocity is going to be 100. And now I need to make sure I hit that velocity at the same time or before this comes. So let's put a bang and do that. Okay, because remember, bangs are just going to throw out whatever you give it and say bang. So this is going to get a number. It's going to get the note number, but the bang is going to say, I don't know what that number is. I'm going to say bang. It's going to hit this 100, and then we're going to get a velocity. There it is. Okay, so I can play some notes. than they are a second later. Cool. It works. Okay, now what if we want to hear our undelayed note at the same time? Let's add that in. Okay, so what if we wanted the dry to come through? The dry meaning the not delayed, right? We could do that. All we would have to do is this, right? Now, let me try to clean this up a little bit. Now let's see what's happening. First, we're going to play a note, and this is going to take it right down to the note out, and we're going to hear it. But then also that note's going to go over to the pipe. It's going to delay for 1 second, and then we're going to hear it again. Okay, so if I play a note, we hear it twice. Cool. What if we want to put the option to turn this on or off, that we hear the initial note, this one, I'm sorry. Well, it's quite easy to do. So let's delete that for a minute. Let's nudge this over there just to try to keep this a little clean. Max patches always get really ugly. Okay, so I could use a toggle here and say turn that initial note on or off. However, remember a toggle just sends ones and zeros. It just turns things on and off, but I need an object that knows how to let that note through or not let it through, okay? So let's try to figure this out. What object would work to, when the toggle says it's open, to open something and let the note through, and then when the toggle says it's closed, close something and stop it from coming through? Any ideas? Open, closed, open, closed? How about a gate? Gate would probably do it. So I'm going to grab an object and say gate. All right, let's look at gate. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay. 0 closes the gate, non-zero opens the gate. Okay, that's exactly what this does. Incoming gated messages. Okay, so our messages go through the left side. And then gate output 1, which is currently closed. Okay, so let's put that there. All right, now we can turn it on or off, right? So let's say it's off now, so we should only hear one note, and it should be a second after I play it. There they are. Okay, so now let's open the gate, and now we should hear our initial note and our delayed notes. Sweet, it works. So we used a gate and a toggle to give us a dry, wet amount. If we want to be a little extra, we could put a comment on that and say dry, wet, sure. And just put that right on that toggle. Neat. Now we know what that is. Cool. All right, let's add some more notes. So now let's say signal comes in. Let's say we hear it, sure. And then we get the note again. Now let's say, I actually don't think we need this anymore, because now that we've given this 100 and we're not going to give it anything else, it can just stay there. So we should still work, yeah, just fine without that. Okay, so let's say when this note comes, we want it to be an octave higher. Cool. So we've already done that. We just need to say plus, and then 12 notes up is going to be an octave. Okay, so now let's take this, get rid of that, and send it down to make the note. All right, so now we're going to hear our initial note and a note an octave higher. Cool. Let's add some more notes. All we need to do is copy this. And let's say after 1500 milliseconds, we get, let's go down to a fifth. Oops, which is 7 half steps. We're going to take that note again, delay it by 1507 half steps. Take that into our note out. All right, play note. Cool. Let's make another one. Okay, this one I want to be earlier than this one. So let's go just 500. And what's my interval? How about like a major 7? That's going to sound kind of funny. But let's do it anyway. Okay, we'll put that one in there. Now we should hear 3 notes. Okay, now let's do one more, and let's do an octave and a fifth. So that's, let's see, 12, 13. So that's 19. Connect it. All right. So now we should hear, let me put these in order. That might help us here. So we're going to hear this note. We're going to hear half a second after I play a note. We're going to hear a major 7th. Then another half a second later, we're going to hear an octave. Then another half a second later, we're going to hear a 5th. And then let's set this to 2000. Another half a second later, we're going to hear another octave and a 5th. Okay? Neat. So now I can play a bunch of notes. Neat. And we made a cool little MIDI sequence. But we're not done. We can get weirder. Let's add some random elements into this. Okay, so what if we wanted to say, this is a cool patch, I play a note and it plays a bunch of other notes, but what if we wanted to say, you know, why am I playing notes? Why can't the computer play notes for me? So let's cut me out of this. I don't want to play notes anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell the computer randomly choose a note at some interval. Okay? So what we need to do is send a random number to this. So let's go random. That's going to make a random number. Now random is a little bit of a weird object because what we're going to give random for an argument, and you can look up the help file, but I'm going to help you, is the range. So let's say we want a range of like 24, so 2 octaves, okay? Now, random is going to generate a number between 0 and 24, but that's not really what we want, right? I'm going to give it a bang, and now I'll be able to see what it's doing. So I'm just going to click this bang. Okay, it's going to generate a number between 0 and 24, but that's too low. So what I need to do to get it into the range that we can really use it is add something to it to get it up where it'll be a good MIDI value. So let's add like 40. Oops. Make sure you have a space between your plus and your number or else it's not going to work. Okay. Now we're going to get numbers in the range of 64 to 84. Okay, that might actually be a little high. So let's go down to 30. Okay. There we go. That looks better. Now, let's pump these over here. And I'm going to get rid of our, well, no, let's leave that. Okay, so now every time I click one of these, we're going to get a random number. It's going to put it into this box, and then all our delays will happen accordingly. Okay, it's cool. It's choosing notes now, but I still gotta click it. Like what am I? Like working for the computer? The computer should work for me. So I don't want to click this anymore. So let's tell an object to click that button for me. So what we're going to use here is metro. Metro is like a metronome, but we can tell it to do a whole bunch of stuff. So let's say metro 2000. Okay, so send a bang every 2000 seconds, or sorry, 2000 milliseconds, right? So I need a toggle to turn that on and off. And then we just need to send that bang right to there. So as soon as I turn this on, it's going to start sending a bang every 2 seconds, and that's going to generate random notes for me, transpose them, and then we're all off to the races. Here we go. Okay, that's cool. It's a little low. So let's go back to our this 30 and let's say 40 to get it somewhere better. Let's turn the metronome back on. Okay, pretty cool, right? We're making some random stuff. Do you think we can make anything musical out of this? I've got a few ideas. This is where we just start going down a rabbit hole, and we can do this and do this and do this for months on end and just be making crazy max patches. So we're not going to do this for months, but we are going to do it for at least one more video because I got an idea. Okay, in this video, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to force all the notes to conform to a key. And then the second thing I'm going to do is try to build more notes and make some harmony out of this. Okay, let's do the second one first. So if I want these notes to pile up, one thing I could do is just make my metronome go faster. So if I set this to 1000, we're going to start to get multiple notes happening at the same time because it's going to be halfway through all these delays and then another note is going to get triggered. So we're going to start to get some harmonies. Let's hear it. Okay, cool, but it's ugly. So let's make this conform to a key. Now, there's two ways we could do this. One is that we could go through this random object and kind of tediously tell it notes it can and cannot choose, or numbers that it can and cannot choose depending on a key. That would be difficult. Not difficult, just really time consuming to do. And you don't need to do that because you're in Max for live. So live is already real good at conforming to a key. So let's go to our MIDI effects. Let's get out of what I'm on. Let's go to scale. And let's pick a default scale. Let's say, let's just do a good old minor scale. Or Dorian. Let's do a Dorian scale. All right, that's minor like. Okay, I'm going to put it out here. Now what's going to happen here is that this is our MIDI sequence, right? Now notes are going to come out of that, and then it's going to only let notes through that are in key, and it's going to kind of smash all the other notes into the key. All right, so let's go back to our max patch and try it now. It's rather delightful, isn't it? Totally random. We're just letting the computer randomly make music for us here. I could listen to this all day. Okay, so there's a bunch more stuff I could do with this. I could make it so that it has little pauses every now and then to make it a little more musical. I could make it so that we could adjust the tempo a little bit more. But let's move on from here because I want to get us into building some audio stuff, okay? We're going to do one more big project together. But in between, we're going to learn how to deal with audio coming into your Max patch. So let me give you this patch. If you want it, you can load it up and just play with it. Remember, all you got to do really is turn this on in order for it to start working. You can also just play some notes still because we didn't turn that off. That would be this right here. So that's still there. So you could just play stuff. Neat. But if you want to turn that off, you could get rid of that. But okay, I'll give you this patch. And then we'll move on to audio stuff.